it's the most popular GPU in the world, despite being 6 years old this July. The GTX 1060 was a fantastic deal when it came out, and has served people very well to this day. You can still play the latest releases at 1080p. So why do I think it's finally time to upgrade? Well, first of all, if you're just still playing some lightweight esports games and it runs it just fine for you and you're not really interested in anything else, hang on to your GPU. It's still getting the job done. Don't sell your 1060. But if you also like to play some of the latest releases, you've probably been noticing the 1060 really struggling even at 1080p. Having to go down to medium settings and still struggle to hit 60 FPS, sometimes even low settings are starting to struggle to hit 60 FPS. And I know you don't have to play a game at 60 FPS, you could play it at 30, but we all know it certainly feels a lot nicer, and especially if you're targeting higher refresh rates, things like that, you really might want to consider an upgrade. And you're like, yeah, I've been considering an upgrade for the last 2 years, but GPU prices have been insane. Well, they're finally down, and as of yesterday, I finally saw the price drop I wanted to see to actually finally recommend a specific upgrade. And I think this is it. So on my community page yesterday, I posted a deal. And when I find GPU deals, I post them here, and a lot of times they sell out instantly. But sometimes I notice it seems to just kind of be the new price, and it holds. And that's when I want to consider making a video about it. So if you watch this video, not at the exact second I publish it, it's still useful information. The RX 6600 has now dropped $30 below its MSRP to $300, which conveniently is actually the price that the GTX 1060 launched at. And while the GTX 1060, I think, was a more dominant 1080p card for its time than the RX 6600 currently is, we've also had price inflation. So this GPU came out 6 years ago for $300, and 6 years of inflation certainly means that, a $300 card now and a $300 card then, it's really not the same amount of money. But it's nice to see the $300. Now, what is that buying you for your money? And why would I recommend this over a lot of the Nvidia counterparts, things like that? Well, first of all, I think for a GPU upgrade to make sense, you want to be getting more than a 50% performance boost for it to be like an actual night and day difference when you install it. Because if you buy a GPU that's only a 20 or 30% boost, it's not that you won't notice it, but you might feel a little bit underwhelmed for all of the effort and money you just went through to do that upgrade. Now, if we look at this relative performance chart, the GTX 1060 compared to other new GPUs like the RX 6500 XT from AMD is basically a tie. And honestly, if you're on PCIe Gen 4 and run over your 4 gigabytes of VRAM limit on your 6500 XT, the 1060 might even be better. Well, what if we go up to the RTX 3050 from Nvidia? Well, it's a 37% performance boost, which, like I said, is somewhat noticeable, but it's a bit below the performance tier that I would target. And honestly, the RTX 3050 is already struggling in more demanding titles at 1080p, and having to either go down to medium or even try to hit DLSS if you wanted to stay at high or ultra settings. And I expect that to get, more demanding as we go on, as games always do, not less. So I think buying into a 3050 right now would only make sense if the price made it compelling. Does the price make it compelling? Well, if we hop over here to PC Part Picker, I've got RTX 3050 sorted price low to high. And the lowest one in stock right now is $330. Now, they do come in stock for less than that. I even was able to get one at $250 myself, but that is hard to do. This is the price that they've been sitting at, and I would love to see it come way down. But with an RX 6600 sitting at $30 less than an RTX 3050, I think buying an RTX 3050 is absolutely insane right now, unless you absolutely need some Nvidia features. Now, some of you are like, well, how about the RTX 3060? Well, the 3060 is a good GPU. I love that it has so much VRAM, 12 gigabytes, honestly a bit maybe even overkill, but like I've never complained about having too much VRAM if the price was still good. But that's the problem here. With the price at $440, I don't think upgrading to the RTX 3060 makes sense when the RX 6600 gets so close to it in performance. It's certainly worse. The 6600 is not as good as an RTX 3060. It has less VRAM, it doesn't have some of the Nvidia features, but it's currently $140 less. I think it would just be insane to buy a 3060 over a RX 6600, and you could consider an RX 6600 XT, which I don't personally own to give you my own benchmark footage of. But that one will actually be a much better competitor for the RTX 3060. In many ways better as long as you don't care about ray tracing or having that little bit of extra VRAM, which I don't think is that big of a deal at 1080p performance. And yeah, that's a significantly better price. So I just don't think the 3060 makes sense. So that is why I think the RX 6600, with its price coming in now where the 1060 launched, despite inflation, giving you a solid 1080p experience, this, I think, is the bet, and we finally hit a price where it makes sense. Now, I would love to see this come down to $250, and I think it eventually will, but we don't know how many months that could be. And if you're thinking, oh, new GPUs coming out like this summer or maybe towards the end of the year, not the low-end ones, unless it's maybe from Intel, but everything I've seen from Intel shows that Alchemist is not something to get excited about. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I don't think waiting for that is going to be that big of a deal. Now, the reason you might want to steer clear of AMD is mainly if you have a professional application that you need to use that is just far better on Nvidia, which those certainly exist. And I'm not going to dive into that. If you're using certain professional applications, you should research whether they are more compatible with or accelerated better on Nvidia hardware, and that would be a reason why you might want to stay away. If you're worried about ray tracing, well, honestly, the GPU that's competing price-wise with the RX 6600 is the RTX 3050, and its ray tracing performance isn't anything so exciting that I would personally want to use it. Because if it's already struggling to hit 60 FPS even without ray tracing at the high or ultra settings, then turning on ray tracing just tanks the performance even further, and I don't think the small visual quality gain you get from it is going to be worth it at this performance tier. I think ray tracing starts making more sense if you're playing on like a 3080 at 1440p, or maybe a 3070, but below that point, it's just not as good, and DLSS doesn't do as good of a job at making up for it at 1080p as it does at higher resolutions, because you do noticeably lose some detail compared to the native image. So, and also if you're worried about DLSS, AMD's FSR 2.0 is looking like it's going to be a pretty worthy competitor. Currently a little bit worse than DLSS 2.0, but not horribly worse. It's a solid competitor, and its only real issue right now is it needs to get into a lot more games, with the only current game supported being Deathloop. So this is it. I think that if you've been waiting for that upgrade to your 1060, now's the time. And the last thing that might make sense is trying to sell your 1060 while it still holds any value. So, get myself out of the way here. So this is from Hardware Unboxed. They did a recent video just a few days ago kind of summarizing GPU pricing, and they track used prices on eBay as well, and these are completed listings. So within May, it looks like the 1066 gigabyte models were still selling for an average of around $155, which if you could get somewhere close to that, that would mean that you're paying for a sizable portion of your upgrade. And you might be able to get a similar price on like a local deal, maybe Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, that kind of thing, if you don't want to try to figure out how to sell something on eBay. The last thing I'll mention here is if you're looking to upgrade to something better than 1080p, if you want to go for a 1440p build, I do think the 6600 is a little bit weak for that, and the 6700 XT I think is the best bang for the buck for a solid 1440p experience. and that would be coming in around the $485 mark. The Nvidia equivalent performance-wise is the 3060 Ti, but that's coming in significantly more expensive. And recently, as of like today or the last couple of days, the 3070s have been starting to creep closer to the price of the 3060 Ti's. So hopefully we start to see both of those come down. 3070s are available now for around the $600 mark. And I actually just posted on my community page, but once again, I don't know if it's going to hold the stock, but feel free to check. In RTX 3070 coming in on Amazon for $580 with just a little bit of delayed shipping. All right, guys, I hope this was useful for you if you were considering upgrade from a 1060 or similar class of GPU, and I hope all of you have an excellent day.